also, I got to had the privilege of, or however you want to word it, man, I got to be in a match. I had wrestled this guy earlier, if you want to call it wrestling, over in Charlotte, North Carolina, after he won UFC number 3, I believe. I wrestled Dan the Beast Severn. I wrestled him in May, and it was a fucking 8-minute match over in Charlotte. And if it had been in a cage, it would have been 30 fucking seconds probably, because he didn't know any better. He was, it's a fucking work. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, thank goodness Mark Curtis was there. Jim Cornette was there. I like, Jimmy, is this guy smart to the business or what? And he goes, well, Alex knows training him something. I'm like, that's not what I asked you. I don't give a fuck who's training him. He knows this is a fucking work, doesn't he? Because he is Dan the Beast Severn. He just won fucking UFC number 3, 4, whatever. But anyway, later, that was in May. In August, as Super Bowl Professional Wrestling, and I know I slur my S's, always have. Shout out to Mr. White, my speech therapist back in grade school. But anyway, Dan Severn and I wrestled for the NWA title in the Super Bowl of Wrestling in Knoxville Civic Coliseum. And on that show, they had Marty Jannetty, The Undertaker. They had Buddy Landell wrestled, Shawn Michaels, the Rock and Roll Express, and PG-13, Brad Armstrong against Billy Jack Haynes. I mean, it was it was the Super Bowl Professional Wrestling at that time. And here I am, a fan, and you know, Jeremy, or Mr. No Gimmicks Needed, you do have a killer gimmick. You have that NWA title, that belt, and I'm wrestling Dan Severn, who was the NWA champion. And I know it was a little bit different prestige at that point than it was when your Dory Funk Juniors, your Harley Races, your Terry Funks, your Ric Flairs, and those people held that title. But to me, that was the legit. To me, that was the real heavyweight title, because that was the fan. You know, I love the AWA, I love the WWF, WWF probably more than anything. The NWA meant more to me. And here I am in Knoxville, right here where we're at right now at the Civic Coliseum, and I'll be wrestling against Dan the Beast Severn. And I'm like, holy fuck. And I'm like, you know what? I hope this guy understands. Business only. Business only. And we fucking had a hell of a match. It was a good match, so good, so much so that when I walked through the curtain, Buddy Landell was there. He was watching the monitor. Jim Cornette was there, who I love dearly with my heart. Total respect. Rest in peace, Buddy. Fuck you, Buddy. You can read all about that and fucking pin me, pay me. You can read about it and fucking, you know, I kicked that on too, my tribute to Buddy. Buddy and I had our ups and downs, but I have enough respect for Buddy. But here's the bottom line. I walked through that curtain that night, and Buddy said, Bobby, you need to send that. Get that on tape, send it to Japan. That was a hell of a match. Here's a guy I worked with for 6 or 8 months previously. And here's Cornette, my manager, and Booker, and they're like shaking their head like, that was a good match. And I guess Dan to be Severn, and we fucking tore it down. It was only like 5 or 6 minute match, but you know what? It looked so good. It felt so good. The flow was so good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Well, that match is actually, you can find it on YouTube if you look. And it does. Now, you guys kind of wrestled in a different style. It almost looked like you're trying to blend MMA and pro wrestling at that point.
Yes.
Lots of shin kicks and leg kicks and things. I mean, you could definitely see that there was an attempt to play with the standard wrestling style at that point.
Well, you know, here's the thing about that. I was in Johnson City, Tennessee, just a few miles over here from Knoxville. Jimmy Cornette and I, we done WrestleCade a few years back, and we always do these fan fest, and I'm always happy to see Jimmy. We have those bathroom stories, and this is one of them. And this is them pin me, pay me. I'm standing at a urinal in Johnson City, Tennessee, ready to fucking piss, and a door swings open. This is the back of the arena. Aerosmith shot "Loving an Elevator" there. You know, I mean, it is a big deal back in the day for you young folks. But anyway, I'm standing there, I'm pissing, and if you're a man, and I don't know about you women, but if you're a man and you try to stop your piss midstream, you know how hard it is. I'm standing there pissing, and Cornette says, "Hey, Bobby, you got a minute?" And I'm like, I'm pissing. I'm like, yeah, this is unusual. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, "Hey, man, good news." And I'm like, pissing. And I'm like, he goes, "Yeah, I got you booked next month against Dan Severn." And I fucking stopped pissing midstream. And I'm like, what? Do I owe you money? Are you mad at me? Are you firing me? What? And I fucking go over and I wash my hands. My piss, I'm like, I stopped. That's dead. That's dead and stinking like Abraham Lincoln. I'm done. You know, I wash my hands like, Jimmy, what? And he's like, yeah. Listen, got Dan Severn booked next month over in Charlotte, you and him. And I'm like, oh, my God. As we talk, and I'm like, he understands the business. I know Al Snow's been trying, whatever, not to be redundant. I finished washing my hands. I'm big on that. He tells me the deal. My whole deal is like this. He understands the fucking work. You know, it's business only. And I shook his fucking hand. He said, it'd be good. It'd be good for business. And that. He tells me, though, during that conversation, I'm the only one on his roster that can wrestle Dan to be Severn, because he knows I've been trained by the Malenkos. You know, I wrestled at the YMCA back in the day. I wrestled in junior high. I wrestled YMCA back in the day. That shit doesn't mean anything. You're in fucking junior high. Dan Severn wrestled through college. Dan Severn is an all fucking American Ohio. He's an all, or Michigan rather, Michigan. All American at Arizona State. He's an Olympic alternative back when we boycotted the Olympics way back when. Go back and do your fucking homework. I'm not fucking fact checking you. Just checked his name. But the bottom line was this. I said, as long as he understands it's a fucking work. It's a business, you know. And so the first time is for 8 minutes. For 7 minutes and 30 seconds of that match, I'm keeping him off me because he still thinks he's in a fucking cage over in fucking Charlotte. And I'm like, nah, now I got to get the fuck away from this guy. But anyway, the Knoxville match at the Civic Coliseum here, it turned out to be a really, really good match. But the bottom line was this. He understood at that point several months later. And I told him, I said, here's the deal. Dude, if you let me counter and reverse and just work with me, folks, if you don't know by now, to quote Jimmy Cornette, quoting Dutch Mantel, the toothpaste is out of the tube. You can't put it back. As much as I hate the word sports entertainment, it's fucking professional wrestling. It's pro wrestling, whether you buy a ticket at the high school football game or the movie. It's a fucking, you're buying it for entertainment. So you go to it. And I said to Dan, I said, let me counter this time. He was already countering my counters back in Charlotte. And I said, I worked this territory for almost 3 years. I said, I've been on TV for almost 3 years. I've been the junior champion. I've been the heavyweight champion. Work with me. And it doesn't have to go as long, but we can work and treat it like a shoot. And we had a gentleman's agreement. And I was so afraid. Because the first finish was a Japanese armbar, which now is nothing, but back in the day it was a tap out.
Yep.
And back in the day, the Fujiwara armbar, which very few people knew, and I happened to know it because I had trained in Malenkos, and a guy named, an old crusty old bastard named Carl Gotch used to teach him, and Sammy Masama, who was his son-in-law, used to teach shoot fighting on Sundays back in the day. And I'm not a shoot fighter. I'm not MMA. I'm not all that. I'm fucking here to work. I'm entertain you. You're not in a fucking, if I walk in, you start talking about this and that, I'm like, you know what? I'm in the wrong fucking locker room. I'm here to get you over, Jack, or get over one or the other. Pin me, pay me, motherfucker. Because I'm going. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, but I knew I knew holds. Let's just say that. So the second time was going to be the Fujiwara armbar. So I clothesline, and I hate fucking clotheslines, and I think our main man Tex out there put a thing about the lariat, staying the lariat hand. We talked about that before. He took your fucking head off. I try to take, there's kicks you mentioned, there's this and that, there's submissions. When I clothesline Severn, I try to take his fucking head off. There's no holding back. But he reversed a clothesline into a Fujiwara armbar. I was so worried about him ripping my fucking arm out of the socket, taking it out of the socket, jerking it off, and beat me over the head with it. You remember that Flintstones fucking opening where they fucking throw that big brontosaurus fucking rib on the side of the fucking car that turns over?
Yes,
when
I do.
Fred orders? There you go. There's your pop cultural throwback. I thought Dan Severn was going to rip my fucking arm off my fucking body and beat me over the head at it. and make me submit because I fucking rolled over dead as a fucking doorknob with like a zombie fucking apocalypse, my arm shooting blood out of it, whatever. Do your best fucking George Romero or Quentin Tarantino getting an ear cut off, whatever. I pictured him ripping my fucking arm off, boom, and then beat me with it, and I'm dead. But I threw that fucking clothesline as hard as, and I was kicking. I wasn't holding back on those kicks, folks. I threw that clothesline. So I always threw a left-handed clothesline, and it looked so effective. Well, when I went to throw it on Dan Severn, he fucking turned it into a Fujiwara armbar. It was so smooth and so perfect. And when the referee hit that mat, boom, 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 1, 2, 3. You don't have to pin me, but I got paid. And Severn got paid. And thankfully, he understood at that point, 4 or 5 months into the business, you know, this is the work. The better I make this guy look when I do beat him, the better I'll be. And it didn't hurt his credibility in MMA, or pro wrestling or anything else, obviously. And all due respect with Dan Severn, I've trained with him. I've went to the gym with him. We trained on mats. I have nothing but respect. I worked with him twice. The second time was that 5 or 6 minute match was so much better, all because we had a gentleman's agreement and basically pin me, pay me, or you know what, when I throw this Fujiwara armbar, I know you're going to rip my arm out of my socket. Fucking I will tap. At one point or another, I will fucking tap. So work with me. And the bottom line on all that is, you know, Dan Severn said this. Hey, I can work a shoot or I can shoot a work. And I thought, you know what? I'd already talked to Steve Armstrong. I talked to Armstrong. I talked to Cornette in that bathroom. And I thought, you know what? How fucking smart is that? Because that's the thing. So can I, motherfucker. You might be an Olympian, but I'm going to fight you. But let's do it this way. And I know who would have won. And it's not a matter of who won or who lost if it was a fight. But in a wrestling match, I can work a work, or I can shoot a shoot, or I can shoot a work and work a shoot. And I was like, you know what? I already know I'm putting you over, motherfucker. I already know Cornette's paying me. I already know it's going to be a good house. It's a Super Bowl of fucking wrestling. When I throw this arm and I throw a clothesline, I'm going to throw as hard as I can. Catch it. Snatch it. Take me down. Don't rip it out of my fucking socket like like you're on some zombie movie and beat me over the head with it. Please be smooth. And he was nothing but professional. Took me down. Boom, boom, boom. I tap out and he wins the match. And he's still at that point the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. And I'm thinking, like we was talking about earlier, how fucking lucky am I? I'm getting paid to do something I love. I'm getting to wrestle against a world-class fucking athlete that had won in the UFC. I'm in front of a packed fucking house in Knoxville, Tennessee at the Super Bowl Professional Wrestling. And I'm fighting for the NWA World Heavyweight title. And guess what? The better man beat me. The better man won. And I take pride in the fact that I had that honor. So I'm a club fucking sandwich, Jeremy. How lucky am I? You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I am lucky, brother.
No, absolutely. Oh, man. So, Bobby, we're going to start getting ready to switch